Well, welcome back. I'd like to welcome back my guest, Tracy Lawrence. Thank you, Tracy, for joining me today to discuss a topic that is very important. I am not an expert in it, so I appreciate you coming, agreeing to have a second podcast with me about something that I know is extremely important because it was one of the many things I did the first year my mom was diagnosed. That was, besides getting the POA, I got a long-term care policy, but I can't explain it. I just know that it's important because I want to make sure that nobody has to worry about taking care of me when and if this something were to ever happen. And so I appreciate you. This is a disclaimer that this is not a paid advertisement. Tracy's just kind enough to explain something that I know is an extremely important topic, and I felt that I should get an experienced professional to do that. So that would be you, Tracy.
Thanks so much for having me back, Kimberly. I'm excited to well, first of all, to see you again because I really enjoyed our first conversation.
Me too.
And I know that what we're talking about today is vitally important because long-term care is so misunderstood by so many people.
Absolutely.
And it's a subject that's very close to my heart, and I want people to understand what's real, what's fake, and and just make really good decisions for themselves.
Yes, absolutely. My mom actually, when her dementia kicked in, she had let her life insurance lapse, and if she had a long-term care policy, I cannot remember, but she let that lapse as well. So just because she didn't know what was happening, and that was one of the the documents that I found that was like a null and void. So
Right.
yeah.
That's
So
frustrating.
I know it is, but we're working through it, and I know that in the future nobody will have to worry about that with me. And so, first off, tell people a little bit about what long-term care insurance is and why it's important.
Okay. Well, I learned firsthand about the value of long-term care insurance because both my parents had it.
Awesome.
And yeah, so when my dad got sick, it was the first time I'd ever heard of it. I was a graphic artist
Okay.
when my dad got sick.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents were like showing me these policies, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I don't know. So I started looking at it. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of my parents, my father's policy was barely touched. Now, what it did do for us, which had a great deal of value for me when I first got started on the caregiver path, was that they helped you to develop what's called a plan of care.
Okay.
They had a nurse who came to the house and evaluated my dad and where he was at, and then came up with a plan and said, because your dad has these illnesses, it would probably make sense to take advantage of this, 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 and this.
Mm-hmm.
And under the terms of your father's policy, we can cover this, 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 and this.
Mm-hmm.
So they pointed us in the right direction. Because, when you first get started, I'm sure you know this, you're deer in the headlights, right? You're
Yep.
just like, oh, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, to have an authority look at your situation, look at the condition that your loved one is in, and say, okay, here are some things you should think about. That was like, oh, okay, good. Thank you. I know where to look.
Yeah. And having options.
Yeah. Because you just don't know. And, and when you're first getting into this, people think they can Google their way at anything, right? It's like, I'll look it up on YouTube. Someone will show me a video of like what to do with my parents.
Yeah. I mean, believe me, you can Google, it's not you Google your way out of, but you can definitely get more information, but to have someone like yourself, a professional, that's what they do. The fact that your parents had policies already set up was super smart, just super, like a gift almost to you is
Absolutely.
what I would say, because it's one less thing you have to worry. I mean, there's gonna be a whole bunch of other things you got to worry about, but this is one less thing, right?
Right. Well, it is and it isn't, because once you have a long-term care policy, then you got to know how to file a claim, and you have to know what you're entitled to under the policy. You have to know how to speak their language, so they'll approve the claim.
Okay.
Right. So, what most people don't get about long-term care, well, there are a number of things. First of all, most people think that when you're on Medicare, it pays for everything.
Yeah, I know that that's not true.
It's very untrue.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to things like the types of things that happen to you when you develop dementia. Because it involves something called custodial care.
Okay.
All right. Custodial care means having someone to assist you with what are known as activities of daily living.
Like shopping, like let's see, paying the bill, shopping. I'm trying to think of all the things. Go to the doctor's appointments. Maybe make sure that your laundry comes out of the washing machine after 3 days. Feed the dogs.
Yeah,
Lots of different things.
Yeah. Well, technically, the way I advise people to think about ADLs, activities of daily living, is think of what you do when you get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. You get out of bed. You go to the bathroom. You feed yourself breakfast.
Yeah.
You take a shower.
Yep.
You get dressed. Right. So those are what those are activities that meet the definition of activities of daily living.
Got it.
Transferring, toileting, feeding, cooking, transfer. Those are the official names for those things, but those are all the things that you need to be able to do to conduct an independent life.
Yeah.
So when you can't do those things, then you need an able-bodied person who can help you to overcome your limitations with regard to those activities. So a lot of aging people will rely upon their adult children. The problem with relying on our adult children is that, number one, most of them have other things to do than help you get out of bed and help you get dressed and help you do all those things.
Yeah.
Most adult children have jobs. A lot of them have kids.
Yeah.
A lot of them have other family members. So putting that all together, that puts a lot of stress on the caregiver.
Absolutely.
Additionally, and this is something that I discovered with my mom was afraid of hurting me. Right. So if I would give her a hand to help her up, or I would try to help her to get someplace, right, she was afraid to put any weight on me. She was afraid I was going to injure myself. So when I started utilizing the services of paid caregivers, it was better, because even though I might have been able to physically help lift her, it was a lot easier for her to allow a professional to help her up, because she wasn't afraid. These people were trained in how to pick her up. They're wearing they're wearing a uniform, right? There were scrubs or whatever it is that signals to mom that, yes, this is somebody who knows how to do this job.
Yeah.
So she's going to feel more comfortable putting herself in the hands of somebody like that. She's not worried about hurting them.
Yeah.
So having resources in place that help you to pay for people like that, okay, is extremely important.
Absolutely.
Medicare is not going to pay for that. It's off the table.
Yeah.
So people need to understand that. The other thing is that the kinds of facilities and resources that we need to be able to access in order to help our loved ones, the cost keeps going up.
Yeah.
And there are no controls on that cost. There's absolutely no regulation. It's a Wild West out there.
Yeah.
Okay. So over time, the likelihood that there are going to be controls on this, eventually, if Congress ever manages to do anything productive, we might actually have regulations in place. But until that happens, we have to count on the prices of these things going up and up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
So in order to protect ourselves from plowing through every cent we ever accumulated in our lives while we were working,
Mm-hmm.
we got to have some kind of backstop. And that's what long-term care is all about. It's having a strategy to help you pay for these things that you're going to need as you age and need more help.
Yeah. And you're that way, you're not relying on your loved one to pay for it or your retirement dollars to pay for it. Is that correct?
Well,
A
it,
correct statement?
it really does depend,
Okay.
but at least you have something.
Okay.
Like, so here, the deal with long-term care insurance
Mm-hmm.
is that in most cases, the traditional long-term care is a use it or lose it proposition.
Okay.
So you purchase a policy, you pay premiums, and the expense of the premium is based in part on the length of time you're covered for,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of benefit that you're paying for,
Okay.
whether or not you have what's called, cost of living
Mm-hmm.
increases over time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also something called an elimination period.
Okay.
And that is the amount of time that has to transpire between the time that you file a claim and you actually start getting payments
Okay.
from the insurance company. So in other words, you're agreeing that you're going to self-insure for a certain period before you actually start collecting money from the insurance company.
Okay.
All right. Now that can be important because if you have the assets, then if you can afford to self-pay for a period, then the amount of premium that you're going to pay for your insurance policy is going to be lower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are all these different moving parts in determining how much it's going to cost you to have a policy.
Okay.
Okay, now the other part of it is that if you have a traditional policy, you're going to pay premiums as long as you live or until you file a claim.
Okay.
Okay, generally when you go on claim, the insurance company will say, okay, you qualify for the benefit, so we're not going to make you pay premiums anymore. That's what's known as waiver of premium.
Okay.
All right. So at that point, you're collecting, you're not paying out.
Okay.
All right. So the number one thing I hear from people when you talk about long-term care insurance is, it's so expensive. Right?
That's true.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, it is. Because number one, it's really hard to get now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are very few companies actually writing long-term care insurance anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because when the idea of long-term care insurance first came about, the insurance company said, you know what? People are going to buy this at some point, and then they're going to let it lapse. So we'll never have to pay out on these things. Guess what happened?
People are
people kept their policies in force because they kind of got the idea that they were going to live a long time and they were going to need them.
Yeah.
So the insurance companies were actually saying, oh my goodness, where's all that money going? Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's changed, right?
Yes, it has. It has. It has changed drastically. The company that my parents had was the company that my husband and I had for a while. Those companies, they're still around, but they are not writing long-term care policies any longer.
Okay.
Now, what people need to know about that is that if you have a long-term care policy that was written by a company that no longer writes the insurance, if they are a registered entity in their state, then the state has insurance on the insurance.
Okay.
So they have to honor the terms of the policy.
Okay.
So as long as you keep your policy in force, you will not lose it. So when you hear that so-and-so insurance is no longer writing long-term care insurance, do not stop paying your payments.
Just
keep it in force. It's really important because you don't want to lose that coverage because you can't replace it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
So, so is all of this making sense so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I have heard of policies where that say I don't get sick, I get long term, that you can convert it into something else that so it goes to my beneficiary? Is that something totally different, or is that?
Well, it depends. There's
Okay.
something called return of premium.
Okay.
So if you have a policy that's got return of premium, then if you die without using it, then your heirs should get the money back.
Okay. That's
which
awesome.
is kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Because you're not losing the money.
Yeah.
However,
somebody gets it.
Yeah, your heirs get it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. What it's saying is, okay, you pay these premiums in, and whatever you put in, you're going to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no growth.
Okay.
All right. So the alternative to traditional long-term care is life insurance with riders.
Got it.
Okay.
I'm writing this down.
Yes. So I really happen to like that option, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say, and I actually, my husband and I have these kinds of policies. I have a life insurance policy. It's called an indexed universal life insurance policy.
Okay.
And what that means is I put money into the policy, and over time, the money grows. The amount that it grows has to do with how I tell the insurance company I want to invest the money that's in the policy, and how well the index that I specify does. So, okay. So what does that mean? Well, most indexed universal life insurance policies use what's known as the S&P 500. Okay.
Like the stock market.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's an index of like 500 well-positioned companies and how they do over time, right?
Okay.
So as long as those indices are doing well, then your life insurance policy will gain in value over time.
Okay.
My internet connection is unstable. Okay. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Okay, good. So, all right. So
as long as they're doing well.
As long as the S&P 500 or whatever index your growth is tied to does well, then you're going to do well.
Okay.
And generally, with an index policy, there are a couple of features. One, there's something called a cap.
Okay.
And it says the cap says that no matter how well the market does, let's say the S&P 500 grows by 20% in a given year. Okay. And with the current bull market we're in, that's not beyond the pale, right?
Okay.
But let's say your policy has a 12% cap. The S&P does 20%, you're going to get 12%.
Okay.
All right. So you're going to say, oh, well, that's kind of stinky. I'm losing eight points, right? But there's also a floor.
Yeah.
So that means that you can't lose money.
Okay. That's good.
All right. Which is really important because when you look back to 2008, the S&P lost almost 40% of its value. People who had their money in the market at that time were not real happy.
Yeah.
Because, everything they had was in the toilet and they lost money.
Yeah.
Now, people who stuck with it and waited for it to rebound got their money back plus.
Yeah.
However, if you've got an indexed policy, like the one I'm talking about, you lost zero. You didn't lose anything.
Yeah.
So the gains that you already had were there, but you didn't lose. So that's the beauty of indexing. All right. Okay. They cap how much you can make, but they also keep you from losing anything. So it's
which is very important.
Yeah. So you hold on to more of your money. It's a safer way of dealing with the money.
Okay.
You're not going to get the guarantees are not, but it's a nice way of being able to make sure that, you're not going to lose.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have this life insurance policy, and there are riders attached to that life insurance policy, which say that as the money grows over time, you can actually take some of that money and use it different ways. Okay. So,
which is very important.
yes. So if you have what's called a chronic illness rider
Mm-hmm.
on your life insurance policy, if you get sick and you need to use the money for long-term care,
You can.
you can.
Okay.
All right.
That
And
makes
that's a
sense.
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Right. So, and what's also nice, and this is something that appeals to me, is that you don't have to give them receipts saying, oh, I spent this because I had a long-term care problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just have to qualify for that benefit
Mm-hmm.
by having trouble with 2 out of 6 of the activities of daily living.
Mm-hmm.
And then the insurance company says, oh, okay, Tracy's doctor says that she's having trouble with getting to the bathroom by herself and making her meals. So we're going to let her take money out of her policy up to a certain amount, depending
Mm-hmm.
on state regulations. And then I can hire whoever I want to help me.
Okay.
Or I could go to Europe if I want.
Yeah.
They can't tell me how to spend the money is the point.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
So I just have to have the qualifying event and boom, I have access to the money.
Okay.
So that to me is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Add to that, if I never have a long-term care event,
Mm-hmm.
I sincerely hope happens, but who the hell knows, right?
Yeah.
I can spend the money on other things,
Yeah.
right? I can put a new roof on my house. I can put a wheelchair accessible ramp on. I can put grip bars in my shower, whatever
Mm-hmm.
I want.
Yeah.
And so it gives you other ways of spending the money,
Flexibility.
which you don't have with a long-term care policy.
Yeah. So that's definitely how things have changed. That's awesome that
Yeah.
there's other options for sure.
Yes, there are. And then the policy that I have also has a terminal illness rider and a critical illness rider. So there are a lot of different ways that I can tap into that money while I'm still alive.
Okay. Which is very important.
And they're not going to tell me how to spend the money. All they need to know is that my doctor says that this is what's going on.
Got it.
So for me and mine,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a brilliant way of being able to have a long-term care strategy in place without like just locking myself into only having long-term care coverage.
Yeah. So what would you say the biggest misconception about long-term care insurance is? It seems like you hit on it, but I just want to clarify it.
Well, there are a couple of things. Number one, people think it's too expensive. And I say, well, yeah, but what's more expensive than having to pay $15,000 a month for a nursing home room?
That is expensive.
It's crazy expensive.
Yeah.
And if you think I'm exaggerating,
Mm-mm.
I actually have a client. When I first met them, they were paying for caregivers to come to their mom's house.
Mm-hmm.
She needed 24/7 care because she had dementia and she was living in her home.
Mm-hmm.
They were paying $12,000 a month.
Wow.
In the home.
Yeah.
In her house.
Yeah.
That's not with food. That's not doctors. That's not prescription drugs.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the caregivers.
Yeah, it's quality caregivers. I get it. I priced it out. It's definitely extremely. Some regions are less and then others, but for the most part, it's not.
Yeah,
it is definitely an expensive
yes.
cost.
Yes,
Sure.
and I live in the state of New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
so it is like crazy expensive, admittedly.
Mm-hmm.
There are other areas of the country where it's less, but it's significant.
Yeah.
So you need to understand, expensive is a relative term.
Correct. Absolutely, I agree.
So there's that. The other thing is some people say, oh, well, but I'm only going to have like this much money to spend on my care, and care is going to be this much. And they have to understand that long-term care you can't expect to have an affordable policy that allows you to live your life with any kind of comfort,
Mm-hmm.
and cover every single possible expense.
Yeah.
Right. So having some kind of long-term care device,
Mm-hmm.
okay, in your life, it should be part of a more comprehensive strategy.
Yeah.
Right.
The bigger picture.
Yeah. So, some people, they're nuts. They think, all right, well, if I pay, this much a month for a long-term care policy, then I should be able to have my long-term care policy pay for, indefinite care in the facility of my choice. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, and that's why you really have to, I suggest you work with a professional who can help you to put together a strategy,
Yeah.
right? Big picture,
Yeah.
what do you want? How much are you willing to put in right now? And how do you see your future? And
Yeah.
by working toward a direction, then you can have something in place that'll let you sleep at night, and at the same time not risk losing the house you currently occupy.
Yeah. And I'd say start young. Like everybody, I mean, I got mine when I was 30. Well, as soon as the year my mom was diagnosed, because I don't have any children, and I just didn't want someone else or, my future husband to have to worry about those things. It's not fair that others, yes, our parents bring us into this world and it's our responsibility to help them go out with grace. However, at the same time, if your parents are gone and you have no children, or if you have children, period, like it's your responsibility. So start younger, like start in your 30s. I tell my nieces and my nephews, start saving money, and next, get insurance policy and look into long-term care, or do both, but you're young now because you can get, the younger you are, the healthier you are, the better the rate you are, right? Is that a good?
Absolutely. That's absolutely right, Kimberly.
Yeah.
You're on point. And the younger you are, the more it makes sense to get one of these life insurance policies that has a chronic rider, right?
Yeah.
Because you're building value over time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they have all kinds of time.
Yep.
And no one knows what the future will bring. I mean, you can get sick in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s.
Absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily, wait for you to turn 80,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so by doing it younger, you're getting it at a much lower rate.
Mm-hmm.
You can even, and one of the things that I love is when you can kind of figure out, like, when do I stop paying into this policy? You
Mm-hmm.
can, you can work it out so that you only pay until you're, depending on how young you are, maybe you only pay for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Or 25 years.
Yeah.
And then you stop, which is great because, like, all right, maybe but you don't want to retire, but you want to slow down. And the last thing you want to do is have to keep paying into a life insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
So you can create a policy that, that you will only need to pay into for a limited time. That's why I tend to stay away from whole life. Whole life is great for some people,
Mm-hmm.
but whole life generally means that you're going to pay for your whole life.
Okay.
So,
That makes sense.
Right. And the universal policies, what universal means is that it's flexible.
Okay.
So you can adjust your premiums over time. If you decide that, if you're having a great year and you want to put more money into it to help it grow, that's great. Like, I had a tough year last year. My universal policy, I had enough money in there that they said, you know what? We don't need a premium from you this year.
Yeah. That's good. That's good
Yeah,
flexibility.
because it's growing and it's self-supporting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
If I had a whole life policy, it'd be like, let's go. Come on, walk it over.
Yeah.
So,
And then you lose it because you're not paying on it, right?
Right. And you lapse, and then what have you got? Right.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
and the other thing I really like about life insurance as an asset class is that when you take money out of it, whatever money you take out of it is tax free.
Oh, okay. That's tax free, folks. Come on.
It's what you keep, right?
Yeah.
And the policies that I advocate have a lifetime, a living benefit where you can take it as income.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it's money that you can take, let's say you get to a point and Social Security isn't really doing it for you anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your other vehicles aren't throwing off enough money, but hey, look, I got this life insurance policy and my heirs are doing fine. So I'm going to use it and I'm going to live better right now.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
you can turn that on as cash flow.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of benefits to it, sounds like. I wish.
it truly, to me, it makes so much sense because
Yeah.
it protects your family in case you die,
Mm-hmm.
but it also protects you in case you get sick
And
or in case,
live.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's, to me, is so important
Yeah.
because, you know, look, we're living longer and sicker.
Yep. 100%. And the worst thing you can do is, and please forgive me for saying these words, but it's an absolute, some of the stories and the conversations I've had with people, but it is a overwhelming burden of love. I'm going to throw that in there, that somebody who loves, whether it's somebody that, if it's your, you know, spouse, your child, your grandchild, that they do for you because they love you, but it's hard on them, you know, especially, you know, financially, it can become hard on them if
Sure.
things are not, there's not a discussion, there's not a plan in place of some sort. And this is a great, like, even if that's all you do is get a, you know, life insurance with riders, or you buy long-term care, whichever it is, but you have that option, you're paying for it. And when it's time, well, of course, tell somebody about it. That'd be great. But,
Mhm.
but when it's time, then, you know, you can go to a professional that is going to guide you in the right direction, you know?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And you want to make sure also that you have an appointed advocate who can help to file your claim and
yeah.
manage it for you, because it takes a lot of work.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
know, as I discovered with my mom, I mean, it just took so much time out of my days
Yeah.
to get all the documentation lined up and to file the claims. And there
Mhm.
was a point in time where my mother's long-term insurance company
Mhm.
stopped making payments,
Wow.
and it went on for 7 months. Yeah.
Wow.
And nobody at the company could tell me why they weren't paying.
Mhm.
So meanwhile, so I'm paying out of cash reserve
Mhm.
what I should be able to pay with the claim money, right?
Yeah.
So I actually,
Wait a minute. Cash reserves of your own money, right?
no, actually, it's my mom's cash
Okay.
reserve.
But still, it's still money that
But
could be
yeah,
used in other places for her. So, yeah, that's
right.
still
Well, that's
hard.
my inheritance, right? That's
That too.
money
Yeah.
that, you know. I mean, and look, it wasn't about inheritance for me.
Yeah.
It was making my mother's money hold out as long as possible, because I know no idea how long she was going to live in the condition that she was in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I had to keep transferring money from my mother's cash reserve into the checking account to pay for her
Yeah.
rent at assisted living,
Mhm.
when previously I was getting payments from long-term care, and then that check would be cashed, and then I could make out the rent check for the next month.
Yeah.
So, you know, and there was still, you know, a little bit of a shortage, but, you know, what, that I could manage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this was like, you know, months and months and months of not getting any checks. So finally, I wrote a letter
Mhm.
to the CFO of the company
Mhm.
saying, you know, this is going on. And does it behoove you to have someone like me go to social media and let it be known that this is happening? I don't think your company would really enjoy having that kind of information be out there in the world.
Yeah. Well, but it's,
And
some
within
people
a
need
week,
to know. They need to know. Like,
yep,
it's,
absolutely. But within a
yeah.
week, they assigned a person to my case.
Mm.
And within 2 weeks, they had uncovered the reason why I wasn't getting the money, and that they owed me significantly more than I thought they did, and I wound up getting a rather hefty check.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, it worked out, but, you know, the work that it took to stay on top of this while I'm taking care of all the other stuff that I'm doing,
It's a lot.
and, you know, and conducting a professional life and making sure my mom is okay and
Yeah.
taking her to doctors and It's
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's a
and
juggle. It's a juggle to juggle your own life as well as someone else's, your
yep,
family's life. And, you're going to do it because you love that person, but it's still hard. And so if you don't have these tools, you don't have these resources that in line, or that you can go get, then that's one more thing that is, I know it causes me stress. Like, I just have to take it as it comes, and know that I'm doing the best that I can each day, that I start, whatever it is I have to tackle that day. But it's not easy for anybody. Like, everybody's doing the best that they can. So why not have a little bit of a plan, and starting even here would be a great way, because then you have a little bit of assistance.
yes, yes,
For sure.
yes, and,
Um,
yeah.
so every state is different, right? So you recommend, getting with someone within your own state. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, you do want to you want to work with someone who is conversant in the rules and regulations in the state in which you reside, because
Okay.
um like I'm licensed in New York and New Jersey,
Okay.
and frankly New Jersey's easier.
Okay.
New York has regulations that are like crazy.
Yeah. But
um but they have much looser Medicaid rules, so
okay. Good to
so
know.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I work with an attorney who routinely counsels her clients if they have a choice between retiring in New York or New Jersey, go for New York, because it's a lot easier to get approved for Medicaid in New York.
Okay.
New
Well,
Jersey's a bear.
how can people reach out to you if they have more questions? They need some direction on, all this and more, because I know this is what you're passionate about, which you do on a regular basis.
Oh, sure. Well, for one thing, they can go to my website, which is grandfamilyplanning.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some really great free resources that they can, all they got to do for them is give me their email address, and I will be
Okay.
happy to send them links, and they can download. I have 8 topics you must discuss. So
Okay.
when first having that conversation with your family members, and you want to know what you need to talk about and what kind of resistance you can expect,
Mm-hmm.
that's in the ebook.
Okay.
I have a list of resources, useful websites, including there's a long-term care site, which is completely agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to tell people like what product they should get.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very individual thing. And of course, varying from state to state as it does, but it's a great resource, and it's in that, it's a PDF with a bunch of clickable links in it. So it
Okay.
will give you some information there. I'm also on LinkedIn,
Okay.
as you know, and I've got 2 profiles. One is my personal profile, my outside business profile, and also there's my financial services profile. So
Okay.
if you go to LinkedIn and you look at for Tracy, Tracey,
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence, Lawrence dash SA, that's for Securities America.
Okay.
That's that profile. So you can
Okay.
communicate with me there if you want to talk to me about financial stuff,
Okay. Okay.
because they monitor me there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you going into depth, because I too have learned a lot, just, in the 2 different interactions, 3 in our, calls in between, um, from, your experiences, and sharing your knowledge has helped me. So I really appreciate that, because I know how important whether it's now life insurance, which I have, but long-term care, and all the differences has, truly made a difference in my life. So I really appreciate your time sharing it with the
Oh,
listeners.
my pleasure,
For
Kimberly.
sure.
Anything I can do to help. I know how confusing it is, and
Yes.
look, and anybody who wants to reach out, I hope that I've explained, the aspects, so that people feel a little more comfortable with the idea.
Yeah.
But really do reach out to me. I'm there's a lot of social media that I'm I'm on. So if you're looking for me, you can find me.
Yeah, definitely. And tribe of listeners, please, if you know somebody that could use Tracy's advice and knowledge, please share this episode. I do thank you for listening today again. And to all the caregivers listening, take care of yourself so you can continue to take care of others. And in the words of Dottie Gandy, you have my undying love, gratitude, and appreciation. But remember, last but not least, make sure you have that conversation and get that plan together with your family members, because it is very important, as Tracy just went over. So, and tomorrow is promised to no one. Thank you all. Thanks, Tracy. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kimberly. Have a great day.
You too.